Welcome to the Irish Occupational Therapy Podcast. This series, Series 3, is focused on using occupational therapy wisdom to support parents with their child's development. So we'll be exploring key areas such as sleep, feeding, toileting, play and communication with insights from experts in occupational therapy and other fields.
Our goal is to normalise the challenges of parenting and provide practical tips and advice. You'll hear from dedicated professionals who will share their expertise and personal experiences to help you navigate the complexities of raising children. Today we welcome Gráinne McElvany, creator of Sonny's Dream, a social media platform which shares the journey of her beautiful boy Sonny, who was diagnosed as autistic at 18 months old. She shares ideas and inspiration related to the therapy services her family engages with and how they implement them day to day during their busy family life. Gráinne is a passionate advocate for children with additional needs. She soaks up every single thing there is to know about neurodiversity and how she can make life more manageable for Sonny, her daughter Robin, and every other individual on the spectrum. Gráinne, you are very welcome to the Irish Occupational Therapy Podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Aileen, and thank you for the invite. I remember a few months back you phoned me and asked me if I would come on, and you completely took me by surprise. So I'm absolutely delighted to be here today. So thank you.
We're honoured to be joined by a parent who can share with us their lived experience. And can we start off, Gráinne, with just telling us about your gorgeous children? What are some of the most common, happy moments and also challenges that you face as a parent, and how do you handle them? Big question.
Yeah, big question. I'll have to come back to you maybe to refresh. So yeah, look, Sonny has just turned 5. As you mentioned, he was diagnosed with autism when he was 18 months old. So that was our private diagnosis. And he later then, just maybe when he was 2.5, got his diagnosis with the CDNT. So he was diagnosed with level 3 autism. And I suppose back in those initial days, I suppose I would have posted a lot on our page about that grief stage and the acceptance stage, and then just the drive to get stuck in and do as much in the early years as we could. I suppose I was very aware very early on of the importance of early intervention. And I think that really has shaped our journey. Mm-hmm. We've put everything into it. We really have. And we're reaping the rewards for that. You probably know that, Aileen, from following the page. But that was kind of where our journey started. The whole podcast is probably going to be about Sonny. So I'll give Robin a quick mention. Robin's just turned 3. 2 completely different children. 2 wonderful children, but 2 very different children. Robin is also on the spectrum. But in a nutshell, I would always say the world will probably never see that. She's a typical girl. She's a great masker. And she's so clever. So clever. She's absolutely wonderful. She was diagnosed maybe about 6 or 8 months ago. And she was diagnosed as gifted as well. She was very superior intelligence, and she scored like 99.9th percentile, on the scale. So she's a way up there. But that comes with its own challenges as well, and a lot of emotional baggage for her, I suppose. But really great that we know that now, and already we can see the benefit of having that information so early on.
Yeah. It sounds, when you get that initial diagnosis, I suppose it sounds like a scary diagnosis or a lot of uncertainty. And I wonder about some of the misconceptions that might have been there either for you or for people around you, or that you come across now in terms of what it's like to parent children with autism or autistic children.
Yeah, I think when you get that initial diagnosis, like the first thing that happens is your world is flipped upside down. You never think this is going to happen to us. Even when we look back to that initial pediatric appointment, it was very clear with Sonny. It was very clear. Our pediatrician was, saying things like he might never talk and he might never toilet train. He probably needs to go to a special school and all of this. And I suppose then the words early intervention come, and look, there's a huge piece and a huge journey, I suppose, in those early months, I would say, of accepting it all and trying to figure out what do I need to do? Where do I need to go? Who do I need to speak to? I think for us initially, it was Sonny's speech. You know, he was 2, he had no words, he had no signs. And although I had a background working with kids with autism, that's still all I could see at that point was the difficulty with speech. So that was our first port of call, I suppose. We found, and we did our homework, and we found a really, really good speech therapist in Armagh, and we started working with her 3 years ago. And it was funny, again, I can't emphasize enough, all we saw was the speech. We need him to talk. But we went to the first appointment with her, and she introduced us to the communication pyramid. And that was the day that we were like, oh my God, you know, we have so much to do before we even get close to the top of that pyramid where words will come out. So we did. And I think that's one message that I always try to get across to parents now, that I have learned so much, is that you can't just go to an appointment weekly and expect all these things to happen. You know, in an ideal world, you guys would live in our house and be doing it all day, every day, but we don't live in that world. You have to do the work at home. And like, I remember so clearly that first piece we worked on with her was eye contact, and it just seemed so relentless, you know. And myself and Sonny's speech therapist, we still talk about this. And I said there was weeks I was coming home, literally, I'd say she could hear me rolling my eyes, thinking that was another half-hour session. What did we really achieve? You know, and we'd come home and we'd do all the activities that she had told us to do to try and bring on that, you know, eye contact with Sonny and all those things on the bottom tier of the pyramid. And about 6 months into that journey, we got the eye contact. And then we got the joint attention, and then we got the shared attention. And, you know, little by little, we started to tick those things off. But it was just consistency. You had to be doing it every day, all of the time, like fitting it in, not just going, okay, this is the part of the day where we're going to do eye contact and speech therapy. You have to just learn to make it part of your life. And that's how we have got to where we are today. And it's one of the first things, if we go to a new therapist or we go to any sort of intervention for Sonny, it's the first thing that a therapist will say to us now, oh my God, he has the most beautiful eye contact. And it is, and it's really genuine and really sincere. So I'd love to get that message out to parents more. And I was actually speaking to my sister about this yesterday. She made a really good point. You can't take your child to a violin lesson once a week and expect them to get good at the violin. And it's so true. You know, they come home and they work on it every day until they go back the following week. And I think maybe that's what happens a lot of parents in those very early days, depending on what therapist you get in with. Parents might not have that knowledge and education of the extent of work you need to do at home.
I think that's what's so powerful about your page and your platform, Gráinne. You're embedding your therapy experiences into everyday life. Mm-hmm. And that has come from, first of all, a place of maybe fear, confusion, despair in the early days. But you've embraced that concept of, okay, let's do something that can help and be meaningful and shape our future. I get lots of inspiration as a therapist looking at some of the things that you do with Sonny. If I'm honest, I'm going on to Sonny's dream page to look and see what is Gráinne getting up to, and it's amazing. And how you incorporate lots of different aspects of therapy into one activity.
Yeah, and I think that's something we have learned to do, Irene, because although Sonny is still, I don't think it's fair to say he's nonverbal at the moment. We're very much emergent pre-verbal, if not, I'll tell you later on how the last few days have went. I would say we're pre-verbal, but there's still a very high level of need there. But Sonny is so intelligent. He has academic abilities that we can't measure yet. We don't have anything to measure them against. But alongside all of that is Sonny doesn't really respond to a child-led play approach, which I find really difficult at the start because I come from a background in play. And if I produced Sonny with a play activity or, a room full of stuff, he'll be like, here's the door, mommy, we're going. Or, even in the early days of speech therapy and OT, I suppose they were doing what they were trained to do and let Sonny lead the way. and the only way he leads is to the door. For Sonny, he needs a very clear cut. What is expected of me? What do you want me to do here? And I know then I'll be done with you. Do you know that sort of way?
Yeah.
So that is where I think that has come from, eating, that I need to know exactly what I am doing so that I can let Sonny know exactly what we're doing, what's expected, where's the beginning, where's the end, and I'm done.
That reminds me of a phrase years ago that I heard for some autistic kids, because again, everyone's so different. Play is work and work is play. So for some children, that structured play experience is so much more meaningful and effective and regulating.
Yeah, and we see that a lot with the page. Like, I always have parents messaging saying, I can't get, let's say Pat, I can't get Pat to do that, or God, Sarah would never do that, And I think it's how you structure it at the very beginning. And
how you introduce it.
Yeah, how you introduce it, and that the child knows what is expected of me here. And then they have that sense of achievement at the end. Okay, I've done it, I'm finished. Yeah. And for Sonny, we always use his iPad. As everybody knows who follows the page, Sonny's iPad is his motivator when it comes to doing tasks like that. And now back when I started doing therapy with Sonny at home, you might have been looking at a 1 minute therapy piece, and that was it done. But he could see, okay, I do it, I'm finished. It's not terrible. It's actually okay. And then I get my iPad, and I actually just had a conversation with our home tutor last week. And we were looking back. She started with us a year ago, and how I came about getting her. And this is again something really relevant, because I'm getting loads of messages to the page at the minute. How do you get help into the house? Who do you get? And it's something, actually, I listened to Sarah Devlin's podcast yesterday, and Sarah's a really good family friend of ours, and she was one of my go-tos in those really early days after Sonny's diagnosis. And she said something to me that has always stuck with me and got us to where we are today. And she said, Gráinne, you don't need people with fancy titles all of the time. You just need someone who gets your child. And I was speaking to a girl at a wedding, before Sonny got his diagnosis. And she's just a local girl. She's actually a primary school teacher. And we just sparked conversation about Sonny. And straight away, she just started saying stuff. And I was like, I need you. You get him. And she's been working with us ever since. And she just said to me the other day, she said, Gráinne, we started out doing 10, 20 minutes of me being here. She now is here for 2 hours a week. And in that short 2 hour period, she is working with him all of the time on schoolwork, stuff that I suppose we might get on to later. I removed Sonny from early intervention. It just didn't suit him. It wasn't nurturing what I needed, I suppose, to be nurtured for Sonny. He was, I suppose, and that comes with his academic ability alongside his very complex needs. And it was just finding the right fit. And I suppose last year, homeschool blended with mainstream preschool was the perfect fit for us. And I suppose our home tutor just filled in that wee gap of still having a teacher as such coming in and doing very structured work with him. And they do a full 2 hour session a week now. But something really interesting she said to me the other day, she actually said, would you mind if I video one of our sessions? I was like, yeah, of course. And she's like, is it okay if I share it with my school? So she's actually a teacher in an autism class in another county, actually. So I don't want anyone thinking, who is this? And she said she wanted to share it with the staff in her school. When she started working with us, I was saying to her, use Sonny's iPad as his motivator, or use going out to the swing as his motivator. And I was like, he'll complete a really good 2 minute activity for you if he knows he's getting that after. And we do it down in our sensory room, so he has constant access to his swing, to his bubble tube, to all his little sensory toys. And she would say that now she wants to just get that message across to her school. Sonny will sit with her at the table. He will do the task. He might get up 3 times in the middle of it and go and have his little happy stim, little regulation. And after 30 seconds to a minute, as short as that, it's not like it's eaten into 5 minutes of, say, a school day if it were in a classroom. She said she doesn't even need to go and get him now. She'll just say, Sonny, and he'll turn and come back and do as many more minutes as he can, regulate. And I think, Aileen and Jen, that's something that really needs to be looked at within early intervention. And that's why it didn't work for us. Sonny's class had a sensory room, but he got to use it once a day for his physio exercises. But that's not regulation, do you
It
know?
needs to be spontaneous when the child needs it. They know themselves, and especially if they're self-regulating like that, that they can go and stim, move, whatever it is that needs to happen to regulate.
Yeah. And that's something I just, you know, Sonny went back to mainstream preschool there on Monday, and he has a full week done. So he got an overage exemption this year to stay in the preschool. And he's actually going 5 mornings a week now. And just one thing I said to them at the beginning of this week, prevention is better than cure when it comes to regulation. And just, I said, until we get our OT in to maybe do this year's sensory diet, just every 20 minutes, some form of regulation and one little break just from the busy classroom. And girls, like, I haven't had one phone call this week. He has went in happy. He's come home happy. He's not dysregulated. He's not burnt out. You know, it's just been perfect. And it's been as simple as letting him have free access to regulation.
It sounds like you and all parents really understand and know their kids, but it sounds like you're able to challenge maybe some of the conventional ideas or the traditional things that, you know, child-led play is best. Well, actually, maybe for your child it's not. Or, you know, sometimes we talk about not forcing eye contact, but you felt that for you that was important. And I think it takes a lot of trust in your own instinct and courage to kind of do what you know is right, but it's really important to do. And it's really nice to hear that you are, you know, such a strong advocate for yours and Sonny's needs.
Yes, Jen, definitely having the courage. The biggest thing was having the courage to remove him from early intervention. I knew it wasn't working. I knew it wasn't what was best for him, and I knew it wasn't the best fit. But like, we mulled over it for months because we had fear. This is what everybody does. Everybody gets a place and it's like a golden ticket and you just go with that and that's it. And he's out of the house from 9 to 2 and sure, that's wonderful. But it wasn't wonderful because he was coming home, like he was coming home and sleeping for 2 hours. Like, you know, and another end of it I felt was Sonny had just turned 3 in the August and he went into early intervention. You know, he was just a baby and he was expected to be in school from 9 to 2 in a formal primary school. And for me, I think just, and as much as you're kind of saying, you know, we need that more structured approach with Sonny, which we do, but we balance it out nicely with that early years nurturing piece, which I think was just what was missing. And we found a really nice balance that worked for us. And he's thriving. And I always say a happy child will thrive. And I think Sonny he was coping. He was in survival mode a lot of the time. Whereas now we really educated ourselves about regulation. And I just felt if Sonny's regulated, he can take anything on. And again, then Jen, you just mentioned the eye contact piece. And that's something as well. I've been on a different courses recently and saying don't force it. But it's one thing, we never did force it. You know, our speech therapist was very much giving us a very clear message, provide opportunities for it. And that's how we taught it to him. We definitely taught it, absolutely, but without forcing it. And then even just the child-led thing, we do still implement that a lot. Like Sonny loves outdoors, he loves trees, he loves leaves, and we'll build around those sort of things all of the time. But in terms of more, I suppose, teaching him his life skills and all of that has to be structured because for him, it's not interesting. I don't want to do it. And I suppose in that end of things, we have to make it very clear what's expected and it is going to be done. Does that make sense?
We need to learn to brush our teeth or our teeth will fall out. There are certain things that do need to be taught that most children don't want to do, but we have to do it in a different way for autistic kids. Gráinne, it feels like our autistic kids have so many, and children with additional needs just have so many hurdles to face in life. And then there's the added frustrations around different systems, particularly in Ireland at the minute. It can just feel so frustrating and we can get really angry about it. And I know in your local community, you're a great advocate for children with additional needs. How do you balance, though, not I suppose getting totally engrossed and going down a rabbit hole of frustration where that takes over your whole life? How do you keep that healthy balance that your own family still come first?
Yeah. I kind of always think of this as navigating the system and navigating all of the systems. I suppose I have went through phases of really fighting for something. And I think more recently, I have maybe made peace with the fact that the systems aren't going to reach where they need to reach in Sonny's lifetime of being a child. And for me, although I haven't given up a fight and I still will push for things to change, this is Sonny's time and this is his one chance. We don't get this chance again. So I think that's where although I do keep a constant battle for every child, I think Sonny is always our priority. And I think I just invest my time and energy a wee bit more now into what we can control and what we can change. So in terms of therapy, let's say, we'll not go down a rabbit hole on this one, but, for therapy to be accessible and valuable and actually make a difference for Sonny, there's three main things. And I would say the first one is building a relationship with his therapist. Like if Sonny goes into your room for the first time, he's going to be like, who is she? What does she want me to do? He has no idea of what is expected, what's going to happen. And we've been very lucky with our private therapists. They invest in him. And that's where I think the difference is in the public system and the private system. They invest in him. They know as much as I know about him, because it's not just a session. Like I will make notes and send them ahead of a session. And that's where I find I've sort of, in a way, made peace with the public system does not fit Sonny's needs. We're 3 years post-diagnosis now. Sonny has broken 3 bones and he hasn't received OT. I have learned about hypermobility. I have learned about low muscle tone. I have learned what we need to do to support Sonny that this won't happen again. And we work on those things every day at home. But I think that's where you can spend a lot of energy and a lot of headspace getting caught up in, well, why is he not getting this? Why is the system not doing more? And I think, what advice can I give to other parents? Look, if you're in any position to do it yourself, do it, because time moves very fast. And the difference that we can make by working in these early years is just, we're seeing it every day. Sonny's moving mountains, but it's all thanks to private therapy. So I think you just have to balance up what is worth fighting for, what is actually going to change. And that's probably something quite recent with me, that I'm like, do you know what? He's not going to get weekly therapy in the public system. So why am I wasting energy fighting for that? And it's sad, it is, and it's unfair, but it is what it is. And I could waste another year fighting for that, or I can spend that time focusing on what we need to do.
And embedding it, not just going to private sessions, embedding what you can afford, I suppose, to access, but then embedding it and putting the effort in yourself into everyday life. Yeah.
And I think as well, parents maybe aren't educated enough on what to get out of therapy. I know for me, my therapists probably have patience of a saint, because I'm in a therapy session. I'm like, right, what do I need to be doing now before I come back to you? And when we don't, our therapies, we actually have reached a point where we don't go every week, because we'll be working on something really big, and I'll be like, right, sure, give us 3 weeks or give us 4 weeks and we'll come back. But I will be questioning, why are we doing it? What do we need to do? How do we best do it? And if this happens and if that happens, your therapists aren't just there to be hands-on. That part for me is really important, by the way, that you're going into a session and they're working with your child. And that's another thing, Aileen, you have embedded in me from your attention autism, that invitation to learn. And that is where the public system doesn't work for Sonny. We might go in and the first 5 minutes are spent with me and the adult conversing about where things are at. At that point, Sonny's like, I'm done.
You've lost him, yeah.
Lost him. And that them sessions are generally, and that's maybe just an annual review or whatever, he doesn't receive therapy. And I'm like, that's just how that doesn't work for him.
That advice for parents is really helpful, and I suppose the challenge between challenging the system and fighting it, but also acceptance and where you put your energy is a really helpful kind of approach, and it sounds like it's helped you to maintain some level of balance. I'd imagine it might be quite a lonely journey at times, or a challenging journey in terms of support systems. Aside from health professionals that you're working with, what role does your support system play? How do you develop that?
Yeah, Jen, a really nice question, actually. And I think I have something nice to share on this. Back in our very early days, we didn't have a support system, and it was really lonely. But I think we needed to allow for that as well. I wasn't ready for a support system back then. Like, I was crying at the drop of a hat. I still am, clearly. But we actually found ourselves a really lovely parent support group, just locally. It's down in my home village, actually. And it's just a group of parents of kids with a range of additional needs. We meet once a month on a Monday night for what we call our sanity check-in. And really, that's what it is. Do you know, I always say, and I say this to loads of mummies and daddies on the page as well in private messages, family and friends are great. They really are, and they really do try their best, but they don't get it. They're not living it. And that's where that support system, it was gold for us, So we would meet once a month on a Monday night. We'll have a cup of tea and a biscuit and a chat about what's going on. And more often than not, it's a chance for us to get an hour out of the house and have a laugh. And I was thinking about this yesterday, and I was like, we actually, all of us have such a raw sense of humour at times, but we laugh, and it really helps, just to make light of all this serious stuff that's going on all day, every day. So what advice I would give to another parent, maybe starting out on this journey in your area, find a group. There's loads of them. If there's not one, set one up. It doesn't have to be anything formal, just a meetup, a chat. We're very lucky, it's developed quite well, and we would do like a Halloween party for all our families, a Santa at Christmas, that it's sensory and it's special needs, aimed towards our children. We had a summer camp there during the summer for them, and we fundraise now. I actually did a fundraiser through our page back in April, and we raised almost 40,000. So we put that all towards providing therapy for the kids. So they had a lovely 6-week OT therapeutic play session there, 6 weeks of that, and they had 6 weeks athletics. It just finished up on Wednesday night there, and they all got their medals. It was lovely. But yeah, find a group. If you can't find a group, look, again, I was thinking about this yesterday, and I started to make a list of all the counties that I have followers in, and I actually gave up, because I think we have followers in every county. So, to any parents listening to this, if you're lonely and you're starting out and you don't have a support group, message me and I'll put it on our stories, and I guarantee you somebody will come back with something. It really, really has been life-changing for us to have that support group. And in terms just then of getting other help, it can be hard to ask for help. It can be hard to find help. And again, I was saying this to my sister yesterday, and she's great. We don't go away too often, but if we do, she knows Sonny inside out now. When you're leaving a child with someone who can't talk, they can't tell you what's wrong, they're crying, you don't know why they're crying. Whereas if we're at home, we know the different cries. We know what pulling me in this direction means or pulling me in that direction means. And we laughed yesterday. She was like, Gráinne, you always leave the Bible. And I was like, what? I said, I remember when I first started looking after Sonny, on the first day I arrived and I saw the list, and I was like, what on earth is she leaving me? But she's like, I would be lost without the list. And I put everything on that. And if that's something that can help another parent, you can be writing things down and be like, oh my God, this is so silly to be writing this. But she would say that makes life better for her and for Sonny, because she knows what all the little movements mean now and what all the little signs mean. So I think handing our children over is really hard. But I think if you make a really substantial list and keep it, you can hand it to anybody. Yeah. And that was back at the beginning, actually, I found hard as well. I found like I was just constantly repeating myself. to my family, to my husband's family, to one of them at a time. And it was so draining, what that means, or he's doing that because of this, or, he wants this because he's doing that. And that was actually one of the first poems I put together and put on the page, was something that I was putting up in our kitchen, that if anybody was here, it basically just detailed what everything means, and just, do anything that can make life easier. Yeah.
I'm really interested to hear that you're fundraising, and that sounds really helpful, because I know you kind of said go private, you might not get the support in the public system, but it's really, really expensive to do that, right? And it's not an option for everybody. But maybe looking at fundraising drives or accessing pots of money to support you would be really helpful, and that people can look at that as an option.
Yeah, definitely, Jen. And that's another great thing about creating a parent support network in your area, because we do apply for different pots of funding, and more often than not, you will get them. Do you know, if you're applying as an individual, obviously you're not going to get it. But if you had 5 or 6 or 10 parents in a group and you apply for funding, you generally will get it. And, we bring in speech therapists for a 6-week block, or OT for a 6-week block. We do music therapy, and we do a lot of it in the winter months, because we find it's easier. People aren't away and stuff. And we do ask parents to make a contribution towards each of those sessions, because we find that holds you accountable then to show up. This group was formed years ago, before I had kids or anything. It's going a long time, but they found that back in the early days, if it was just free, people maybe won't show up this week, and another child could be having that place, because places are obviously limited as well. So we do, but it really, really helps to break down that cost for parents. They're only asked to add in a small portion of the fee. So yeah, no, it's definitely a great idea.
Gráinne, you're an amazing communicator in written form and verbally. You're so generous with what you share. It's so reassuring and so, so inspiring. So thank you so much for creating this space that is invaluable to therapists, parents, to everyone. And thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Aideen, and thank you, Jen, and thank you for having me. And look, before I came on here yesterday, I had reams of paper written up with answers to all the questions you might ask, and it actually is something I came up with this morning. I said to my husband, over maybe the next 6 weeks, it's something I might post on the page, is more in-depth details about everything that we've shared here today, and hopefully it might help others. So thank you.
That's all for today's episode on the Irish Occupational Therapy podcast. We hope you enjoyed our discussion and found it informative and engaging. If you've any questions or comments, we would love to hear from you. You can email us at irishotpodcast@gmail.com or connect on Instagram or Facebook.
And remember to subscribe to our podcast so that you never miss an episode. If you found this episode helpful, please leave us a review on your preferred podcast platform. Your feedback is important and helps us to improve the show, so please do leave it. Thank you for listening to the Irish Occupational Therapy podcast, hosted by myself, Jen Trechak.
And myself, Aideen Rutledge.
We look forward to sharing more insights and knowledge with you in future episodes. Until then, take care.